Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Data Dialogues. I'm Julien Redmond, General Manager at Certus Insight and the host for the series. Today I have a couple of my colleagues with me, very special guests, John Chow and James Hartwright. Thanks for joining, guys.
Thank you.
John, I think this is your first time on the series, so why don't you introduce yourself first?
Hi, I'm John. I'm the product manager for IRiS.
Great. And James?
Yeah, I'm a managing partner for a sister company of Certus called Cognition Studio, where we do strategy and innovation, mainly around data and analytics.
Excellent. Thanks for joining, guys. So today we're going to have a conversation around a Data Vault architecture. What are the components that you need in that architecture so that you have all the capabilities you need to not only build a Data Vault, but to support it over the long term and really deliver value to the business. This is a part of the ongoing Data Dialogue series that we're running through the Data Vault Innovators community. The community's a place for technical and professionals to connect and have conversations and debates and discuss ideas, to share content like case studies and approaches to solving problems. And it's really based on community principles. So the more you get involved, the more value the community will deliver to you. If you're joining today over YouTube, then please hit the like and the subscribe and click that notification so that you'll know when the next episode's coming out. So guys, let's jump into it. I think beyond what people think traditionally of, they think of a data warehouse, they're thinking big database platform, now probably Synapse or Snowflake or something like that. But there's some other critical capabilities that are required if you're going to develop a Data Vault and manage it over the time. So maybe John, in your opinion, what are some of those critical components that are needed to turn that into a real warehouse that you can work with?
I guess one of the big ones is automation. So a lot of people can actually do ETL quite well. But where Data Vault really comes to the fore and is different to the other warehousing techniques is actually the automation of a lot of the code that you need to do. So specifically for the raw vault elements, automation will actually give you an edge and advantage over other warehouse style techniques. So an automation, I guess, capability and platform is one. Another one would probably be the ability to capture enterprise style governance, which is unique, actually not really unique to warehousing, but fairly unique to Data Vault. If you actually have an automation platform, they kind of come hand in hand together. One of the few things people don't fully understand or grasp. What else would there be?
I know when we were looking at, originally starting the project that has evolved into the IRiS product that you manage for us, there was lots of other considerations, right? So we had the way that we were actually going to, connect and ingest data, the way we were going to do other things like, I know testing and other things are close to your heart. And maybe talk a little bit about metadata management, because I know that you've become a bit of an expert in that.
Yeah, so part and parcel with a lot of code automation is what is metadata and how that comes into play. So a lot of the automation is based around the data modeling that you would do. This then results in a set of metadata, which would drive your automation. And as I said before, kind of going to the data governance and lineage, the same information will carry over to your glossary and enterprise lineage platforms. It's all about the metadata and how it all stitches together. I guess then the tooling would actually matter as well. So which tooling that you pull into play. A lot of organizations that I've seen have got some kind of enterprise capability to capture things like lineage and glossary together, but they also don't have an organizational position to pull it all together. So this is where if you have your warehouse as a Data Vault with all the metadata, providing lineage, all of a sudden, I guess you can almost go round off, about 60% of the key lineage in your organization is together in one place. It actually gives you the springboard to get the rest of the enterprise into play as well.
Yeah. So James, you probably tend to take an analytics-based approach to this. So is there other parts of a Data Vault that you would say are critical as well when you're really trying to deliver, BI or analytics out of it?
Yeah, the historically, as we know, the data science teams the analytics teams and the data warehousing team were somewhat divergent. That really conformed view that that we require for that enterprise view, for the management level reporting, for regulation, really doesn't work well in respect of a data scientist trying to find something new and interesting in the data. When we move into agile data management, of which Data Vault is a strong player, to add on to John's piece, metadata becomes really important, because you're not providing, here are 3 Kimball data marts that you can access and that's where your data comes from. There's a wider play in taking that data and orientating that data for your use case, for your business problem, and generating your own marts and generating your own results. So knowing what the data is, knowing how much trust you can put in the origin of that data becomes really important as part of the process. So providing the context, providing that massive information up into the consumption side becomes really important.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of ticking them off, we've got the metadata management platform. We've got some automation capability. There'll be a modeling tool, I guess, in there as well in some way. All of those need to be tied very closely together. We're going to deliver code to a warehouse platform like a Synapse or a Snowflake or something like that.
Yeah.
We're going to have some sort of version control, some sort of testing capability. Then on the consumption end, we've got analytics tools, BI tools. Also, then you've got business rules engine. We might dive into that because that obviously can be a whole range of different flavors. But what I wanted to tackle, I guess, first was extraction from source, extraction from various sources or landing of files. I know that in a Data Vault architecture, there is a landing layer. It's often a lake-style implementation. So what are the different ways that data can come to that landing area? What purpose does that landing serve? James, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah. Data lakes are becoming prevalent. The massive data that organizations are producing hand over fist, even if it's internal data and not just customer data. So data lakes have, as we've probably all seen, started as a dumping ground. Here's all of that information that you always ask me for, go off and play. As that data from the analytics side, certainly as that data starts getting integrated within the organization, the requirement to sort of bring it in line to bring, as I've said, the trust in the data, the trust in the repeating of that process starts becoming ever more important. So I'm not suggesting we throw away lakes, but lakes quite rightly are maturing to have a little bit of governance, to have a little bit of metadata in there, and to be, in a number of cases, a persistent store of historic information. And then as our business requirements come in, that we start taking that data and in a number of cases, aggregate data up through to the warehouse, be that a divisional warehouse or an enterprise warehouse. But landing structured, semi-structured, even images, videos, all of that termed unstructured data. But I still think semi-structured, that you've got a place where you can go and see that original set of data. But the other piece is in that data warehousing side, that you've got linkage through to that originating data, that you've got something that's still that traceability, so that if you do want to grab a bit more data or rerun, you can point back and drag that data through, or from the consumption side go, hey, look, if you need access to that document, I've got a little URL into it, so you can bring it up at the appropriate time. There's a lot of push towards real time.
Yep.
And we've got things like data virtualization and that sort of stuff coming up to real time. I still believe that a near real time structure is probably enough in 99% of cases. In 99% of enterprise cases, the near real time is enough. And many organizations are still running quite happily on daily batches, or let's run 3 batches through the day and get our data warehouse and our functions up to date. If I've got a true operational requirement, I should be pointing to the operational data and looking at what's going on at that exact point in time, and either direct access to the reporting tools within those applications, or, as I said, data virtualization tends to fulfill that in all cases I've seen.
Yeah. So, John, I know, with IRiS specifically, we use the landing as the place for data to be coming in all different sorts of ways. What does it actually do for us when we're that landing zone? What does it do for us when we're trying to build a data vault?
So a lot of the complexity for setting up a warehouse is actually data sourcing. So the idea of having a landing zone, whether it lives in its own kind of little database or is actually exposing portions of the lake, actually allows, I guess, consumers and customers to standardize the way they prepare the data. It gives them one place to go, right? The key is our landing is declared as somewhere where the end, I guess, database that you're writing your vault into can actually easily access. For example, if you're sitting on an S3 a data lake, as long as, just say you're on Snowflake, it has external table access to your S3 data lake. You're good, everything's landed. And James did mention things about, I guess, unstructured, semi-structured versus structured data. What you actually want as a small enrichment on the data lake style data is to start tagging it. So for example, if you want to take a business glossary style lens to the information, when you put it into landing as part of the protocols for landing, you want to tag it with this kind of information. This strengthens the entire metadata conversation we were having before. This is something a little above and beyond what most people are used to, but where I found this starts leveraging off the benefits of, I guess, the enterprise governance that Vault offers, and actually then supports it beyond just the Vault, because you're starting to give the organization some control over usually their lake, which they normally don't have. It's the start of a very important journey for that traceability and understanding.
Yeah, and I know it's helped us solve, data that's arriving in different speeds, and some challenges we've had with, change data capture and those sorts of things. The landing area gives us a place to sort that out, I guess. So that's.
Oh yes, so definitely. So change data capture specifically has been a very interesting one. So what we found is there's 2 variants of change data capture: an actual message stream, which is actually the pure Delta information, versus actually landing something akin to a change history table. But by having it in landing, you have the opportunity almost kind of pretend you can create an area called pre-vault, where you can actually, in landing, do some small degree of processing on behalf of the source system in order to make it more compliant with what we would normally call, vault landing, where the data is ready for consumption. But by having it in a landing zone, you can actually have it manipulated before you pull it in. Whereas if I was fetching from another system, I'd end up having to then land and create it. That's why giving someone a landing place, you still have the opportunity to manipulate it all. And we found for that persistent CDC history table, we absolutely needed a preprocessor of a small extent.
Yeah. And just identifying those deltas, right? So, So if we go,
I was going to say there's one more. Sorry, James. There is one more that I would go in there that we've hit with a number of clients, and that's where you don't own the data, where it's an untrusted data source that you're getting from open data or something like that, and just that sort of initial check of look, it looks complete, that within the Excel structure there's still those same attributes before we take it anywhere near a raw vault. That there's just that sort of comfort check on what is usually untrusted data coming into your system.
So, okay, cool. So landing's pretty important. The next step from there then is, I guess, modeling, mapping, code generation. Pretty easy to rattle those off, but that's kind of the secret sauce of building a data vault, I guess. How important, John, is it to really have good metadata integration between those components?
I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. The metadata is fundamentally what you're keying in. So when you do a data modeling design from your source model to your target model, which would be the vault constructs, you're effectively creating some metadata, what's from source, what's your target, and then the mappings. This metadata should be where you can, and have the tool capability, used to generate your code. At the same time, that same metadata set should be piped across to your enterprise glossary to actually become your technical lineage. Now, all of these pieces of information seem to be platform specific. They're actually not. So if you look at a pure code generation angle, I might be saying I'm targeting SQL for Snowflake for now. I can generate those DDLs and DMLs as files. On the side of that, I might have some files, for example. On the IRiS platform, we'd be going to IGC for lineage. I generate some lineage files, the assets and the mappings. All these would then be wrapped into a single payload via code control as a release of sorts. And that's a completely different topic about the complexities there. But you kind of bundle it into a code control release package. Once that's kind of tested and approved, that's deployed as a whole payload. One evolution we've made for IRiS alongside of that is that same metadata using in visual modeling, we're keeping that in its pure form so we can actually retain the models to be reused on the IRiS platform. So you can actually then transplant not only the payloads of code, but the actual state that the developer generated their code from, and transplant that between users, or actually check it all into a large repository if you felt like.
So it's used for design, used for collaboration, used for auditing and reconciliation and understanding.
Yep.
Yeah,
so it's pretty critical. James, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the big places where I see Data Vault really changing the game in the way that we'd have historically worked on warehousing. And it's the fact that in mapping that incoming data and profiling it and looking at it, that's the first stage in Data Vault in Agile management, where you're going to show it to your end customer, or you're going to show it to the source system owner, and start asking questions about the validity, completeness of that data. And you can only really do that once you've got that set of metadata where you know that I've got the gender attribute coming in, and I've got male, female, M, F, 1, 2, 3. Well, what does a 1, 2, 3 mean? That doesn't seem to fit. And historically, we'd have just maybe ignored that data, put it to one side. But now in Data Vault, we're showing all of the data all of the time. And we need the business, we need the source owners to help us and get that up and running very quickly. And Data Vault's all about the speed of getting that data out. So getting that process and getting your methods and processes changed in line with that is critical within having tooling and having processes set up for that.
And now you're touching almost on data quality framework, and we're going to push that to the side, and we'll do a whole separate episode on data quality framework, because data quality is bigger than we can tackle in this particular episode. But so that's really good. So then people that get to the point where they're actually automating stuff. John, I know this is a topic that's really close to your heart, is how important is it that the templates are adhering to the DV2 standards in a true way, and also, I guess, a complete set of templates when you come to automation?
I guess for my IRiS platform, that's the biggest point of development for us, to adhere to all of those. So a lot of work and effort has gone into the Data Vault 2 kind of approaches to the point where things can be templated. A lot of the, I guess, more delicate decisions aren't apparent to a lot of the people that first step in the vault, right? So they go, that doesn't make any sense. But the people have done it for a long time. Dan's put a lot of effort with his people to get this right. Following the templates and the recommendations as is critical. And that's why a lot of the effort for my platform is actually to ensure that the templates follow all of the standards, even when initially, even for me, it didn't make complete sense. I've learned that in some cases the hard way, trying to deviate from the templates introduces significantly more problems than you think you're solving. This has been around for a while. A lot of people put a lot of effort into this. And once you get deep into it, you see why later on a lot of the decisions were made that are not apparent up front. That's probably one of the biggest challenges, not even as a platform owner, but actually as working with consultants on this. A lot of people will assume I've done warehousing for a while. I can interpret this. I might have a different idea. Stick to the templates and only challenge it. And if you challenge it, talk to the right people so they might be able to explain to you why it goes a certain way. a lot of thought has gone into this, a lot of hours. Once you come to the other end like I am, and I'm trying to build the automation templates for this, you really see it.
Yeah. And James, I guess that also lends to the completeness, because there's, everyone knows hub satellites and links, but maybe unless you're really deep into DV2, you might know about PITs, you might know about bridges. Do you know about record tracking satellites, or do you know about non-historized links, or multi-active satellites, and all these things? And so a complete set of templates is probably as important as adhering to the standards, because then you get consistency the whole way through, right? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah. Look, there is the starter block of getting that core right as you're doing your first sets of sources. As John says, unfortunately, even on those first sets of sources, you've probably picked one that you haven't been able to do before. And if you find yourself down an alleyway, look, it's never totally irreversible, but it's better not to go down the dark alley if you can to start with. The big piece that we are trying to do in line with IRiS, in line with the rest that we do with Certus solutions, is that a little bit of selling here, getting the mentoring in, getting the people who've done this before, and getting those first few sources in and up and running is key, so that you get comfortable with following the processes and why. But the other thing that we built, and I know we have because I've been part of it, is what we call playbooks. It's a US term from American football, but it's the, in this situation, what should I do? Which of the DV principles and processes and templates should I pick up and use? And we're trying to build up that as wide as possible and as helpful as possible, so that people start doing things the right way rather than have to unpick a year later. Because you never know at the start of anything that you do where you've gone wrong. And of course, when you're starting with something new, it's like, no, this feels right. But only when you've gone in with the experienced person will you actually go, okay, I get it. And you may not get it for a year. You may not get it until that system extends or sunsets or replaces. You may not get why we set up the record tracking satellite in that way. But once you've got it, you'll be going, no, we need to do this in all of these cases. They were right.
Yeah. I think that's pretty common.
The amount of times we've heard, oh, yeah, they were right. It's nice and bad.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, it makes sense. I don't think it's overselling that learning from someone who's got the experience, who can mentor you through stuff. And I know we take the path of trying to train and enable as many people as possible. So that, I think that's reasonable. So the next, I guess we've covered off ingestion from source and landing and modeling and metadata management and code generation and templates. So we pretty much built a data vault structure into a warehouse. The next bit is version control and testing, and they're big topics. How important, John, in your opinion, is it to bring software development-like practices to those two areas?
This is probably one of the biggest gaps I see, across the board for data warehousing teams. I remember earlier debates I had with James about how important software practices were to data warehousing. And traditionally, data warehousing crews look at the work as, I'm just doing some coding. Yeah, someone eyeballs it. I release it. If there's a problem, I fix it in production, right? Mm-hmm. The software development practices dictate absolutely otherwise. You go, I make sure we have full control over what a person's changed. And especially when you have multiple developers, check that they don't clash into each other. All the pieces of work are independently tested and verified, and including any clashes are all resolved and retested. Once you then have the payload of work, you then release that as a fixed release. It's all kind of software. When warehouse teams do not follow this, that's when you get people accidentally unwinding code. For example, James might do a piece of work against, just say, writing a query, right? And then I change the table that his query taps into without checking.
Yeah.
You might clash. Or it could be he's literally edited a function, and then later on I edit it and we just don't know. Without proper software development practices, this all goes unknown until you hit production and you have a production issue. Testing is I guess the second line of defense, where once we resolve whether two people working side by side are clashing into each other, you still need to verify whether each individual unto themselves has done the right thing. So by having an independent tester do the work, and I'm a strong advocate of someone else other than the person coding do the testing.
Yeah.
You both look at the requirements as is to inform what the developer for one codes, and then what the tester as a separate entity would actually verify. If there are any discrepancies, they have a conversation, may go back to the BA or whoever came with the requirements, but then you get to the point where you get a done position where the developer's done and the tester is done.
Yeah.
At the very least, then you have the certainty. Two pairs of eyes independently have verified this. The likelihood of something getting into production that's wrong is lower. You're not going to get complete coverage. The idea of 100% testing is usually overly expensive, and in most cases is not worth the investment. That's where each, I guess, asset or team would make a call what level of testing you want to do, and that's how deeply the tester would test. That's also another misconception where testing, you have to do everything. Often that becomes too costly. That's why you actually need to make some kind of, I guess, cost and risk-based decisions there. Now, where automation kicks into play on the back of all of this is if you have done your testing in a way that is repeatable, talking about people creating their own test data, measuring against an expected output, you can then automate that into a regression test. This is where then you roll into the continuous integration and continuous development realm, the next level of the software application on top of warehousing. That might be a topic a little beyond what we need to cover here, but that's definitely the ultimate agenda, where you get a automated regression test to verify what you've released ongoing in your production warehouse.
Yeah, it's a deep topic, and maybe I think we should get a sticker made up saying a row count is not a test or something. But James, this leads right into the data ops discussion that we were having the other day, which is another podcast that's gone out in the series. So any thoughts on that? I mean, it's been, I guess, for us, for what John's brought around the rigor around software development level testing, has been a real eye-opener and adaptation, I guess, for us as a traditional data warehouse, practitioners.
Like, yes, I've run a large data warehouse team, and our standard response for putting any new capability out was it'll be about 12 weeks. And it was partly because we've got, hey, here is a construct, here are all the dependencies, right? We're doing ETL here and ETL here and ETL there. And then and we've got to prove out that this new capability is working, and go and look at all the other areas, making sure we're having no impact. As soon as you move into a data ops, agile data management piece, that has to go out the window, because you're in CI/CD. You're continuously developing new pieces and continuously deploying them. You can't do that in a 12-week package, because that's why the business always hated us. I've got the need now, and I've got the one. And why is that other business area over there affecting the speed at which you can deliver stuff to me? So getting those the great little bits around, here are the business rules that I'm creating or adjusting on behalf of you, and I'm building and testing them in isolation. And as John says, once I've got that set up, I can repeat a bit. Once I've got that core, if I'm deploying something in around there, I get a retest and I get a reproof that this still works. And so adding all of those bits and pieces on in your CI/CD process just becomes the only way you can do it. The other piece there, I'll call back to the testing process. I said ETL. Well, we're following ELT now. So and we're following code automation, so the areas in which we need to do testing are somewhat reduced. The areas in which we need to do testing are beautifully functionally defined. Yes, we've got some complexity in some of the business rules, but it's in this area, and we've got these inputs, we've got these logic paths and these outputs. So that testing process becomes repeatable, definable. The ability to throw a pure set of data at it and test all of those logic paths becomes just a beautiful part of a well-managed data management process.
Yeah. Now, look, as I suspected, there's still a couple of topics left, and we're pretty much out of time. So I really want to talk, and I'll get you guys back, because I want to talk about business rules and the options for business rule engines and how that fits into the bigger picture. And also what's possible around automation at the information mart end, where we start delivering to BI tools and analytics tools and those things. So that'll be a follow-up session we'll do. But I think, for now, if you've liked what you've heard, then please, hit the like, hit the subscribe and the notifications. Head over to the Data Vault Innovators community site and make sure that you accept notifications there, so that you get all the updates, you get all the new episodes, and there's a lot more content coming. And please get involved. We've got lots of announcements coming early in the new year, so you'll see lots of updates are starting to flow out. For now, though, guys, thanks for a really interesting conversation, and we'll get you back to have another one soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.